The rain hammered against the bedroom window like 1,000 angry fists, but it was nothing compared to the sound of my heart shattering into pieces I knew I'd never put back together. There she was, Celine, my best friend since grade school, in my bed, with my husband. And the worst part? She wasn't scrambling to cover herself or stammering apologies. No, she was smiling. Let me back up, because this story doesn't start with betrayal. It starts with a lie I believed my whole life. A lie that shaped everything. A lie that made me think I was lucky when Valerio chose me, when really he should have been thanking God I even looked his way. My name is Marcy Duval, and I thought I knew who I was. Thought I understood my place in this world. Turns out I didn't know a damn thing. Growing up in Millbrook was like living in one of those snow globes, pretty from the outside, but trapped and repetitive on the inside. My mama, the Lowen, raised me alone in a tiny house on Maple Street. The kind of house where you could hear every creak in the floorboards, where winter meant piling on 3 blankets, where new clothes came once a year, if we were lucky. I remember being 7 years old, sitting in Mrs. Patterson's second grade class, wearing the same faded pink dress I'd worn the week before. And the week before that, Jessica Hartman pointed at me and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Doesn't Marcy ever get new clothes? My mom says poor people wear the same thing over and over. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The other kids laughed. All except one. Celine Crawford marched right up to Jessica, hands on her hips, honey blonde hair catching the fluorescent lights like she was some kind of avenging angel. Shut your mouth, Jessica. At least Marcy's dress is clean. Your attitude is dirty, and no washing machine can fix that. From that day forward, Celine was my hero, my protector, my sister in everything but blood. We did everything together, shared secrets under blankets during sleepovers, painted each other's nails with drugstore polish, dreamed about the lives we'd have someday. But here's the thing about childhood friendships. You see what you want to see. You miss the small cuts, the tiny resentments that pile up like snowdrifts. You don't notice when someone stops celebrating your wins and starts keeping score instead. Mama worked 3 jobs, cleaning houses during the day, waitressing at Rosie's Diner in the evenings, and doing bookkeeping for Mr. Chin's grocery store on weekends. I barely saw her, but when I did, she made every second count. She'd stroke my hair and say, "Baby girl, real diamonds don't need to shine loudly. Remember that. The flashiest stones are usually fake." I didn't understand what she meant back then. Thought it was just something poor people told themselves to feel better about not having nice things. I was wrong about that too. High school hit different. Celine bloomed into the kind of beautiful that makes people stupid. Long legs, perfect smile, confidence that filled every room she entered. Boys tripped over themselves trying to get her attention. She ate it up like candy, always needing more, always hunting for the next compliment, the next admirer, the next thing that proved she mattered. Me? I stayed quiet, studied hard, kept my head down, wore Celine's hand-me-downs, and told myself I was grateful. Told myself that having a friend like her, someone popular who still chose to sit with me at lunch, was more than a girl like me deserved. Senior year, everything changed. His name was Valerio Ashford. He transferred from some prestigious private school up north. Dark hair that fell just right, sharp jawline, but it wasn't his looks that caught me. It was the way he listened, really listened, like your words mattered more than his own thoughts. We ended up as lab partners in chemistry. Ironic, considering the chemistry that sparked between us had nothing to do with beakers and everything to do with the way he looked at me. Like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. Like I was worth solving. "You're different," he said one afternoon while we were supposed to be measuring sodium chloride. "Everyone here is so loud, so desperate to be noticed. But you're like still water. Deep." I laughed, embarrassed. That's a fancy way of saying boring. No, his voice was firm. It's a way of saying real. Celine hated it. Oh, she smiled when I told her about Valerio's attention. Hugged me and squealed like best friends do. But her eyes didn't match her mouth. Her eyes looked like someone had taken something that belonged to her. "Just be careful," she'd say, twirling her hair. "Rich boys like him, they're just slumming it." having fun before they go back to their real lives with their real kind of people. But Valerio didn't leave. He stayed. Chose us. Our first real date was at the old gazebo by Miller's Lake. He brought a blanket and store-bought cookies because neither of us could cook worth a damn. We talked until the stars came out about dreams and fears and all the small things that make a person who they are. My family has money, he admitted, staring at the water. A lot of it. But money makes people hollow, Marcy. Everyone wants something from you. Everyone's playing an angle. Except you. You look at me and just see me. I should have told him then. Should have said that I understood more than he knew. But I didn't, because I still believed Mama and I were barely scraping by. Still believed I was the lucky one in this equation. 3 years later, Valerio proposed. Simple ring, nothing flashy, but the way he looked at me when he dropped to one knee made me feel like royalty anyway. Celine was there when I told her, and she hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. I'm so happy for you, she whispered. But her fingernails dug into my back just a little too hard. The wedding was small. Mama cried through the whole ceremony. Valerio's family showed up in their expensive cars and designer clothes, looking at our simple church reception like anthropologists studying some primitive tribe. But I didn't care. I had him. I had love. I had everything. Or so I thought. Marriage isn't what they show you in movies. It's dishes and bills and learning how to fight fair. It's mundane Tuesday evenings and whose turn it is to take out the trash. But it's also soft morning kisses and inside jokes and building something together, brick by brick. For a while, we were happy, really happy. Then Valerio's business started growing. More meetings, more late nights, more absences that came with excuses that sounded reasonable until you lined them all up and saw the pattern. Celine was around more too. Just checking on you, she'd say, showing up with wine and sympathy. Marriage is hard. You can talk to me about anything. And I did. God help me, I did. Told her about the distance growing between Valerio and me. About the perfume on his collar that wasn't mine. About the sick feeling in my gut that something was wrong. She'd nod and pour more wine. Men are complicated, babe. You probably just need space. You know how they get. What I didn't know was that she was the space he was running to. 2 months ago, I found out I was pregnant. Took 3 tests, hands shaking with each one. 2 pink lines. A future. A tiny human who would call me Mama the way I called Eloa Mama. I bought a pair of little yellow baby shoes, soft as a whisper, and hid them in my dresser to surprise Valerio with later. I wanted the moment to be perfect. Instead, the moment I got was walking into my bedroom on a stormy Thursday night, looking for my husband to tell him about the miracle growing inside me, and finding him tangled up with the only person I'd ever truly trusted besides him. Time stopped. Sound stopped. Everything stopped except Celine's smile and Valerio's face going white as sheets. Marcy, he stammered, scrambling. This isn't what it looks like. I finished, my voice eerily calm, because it looks like my husband is sleeping with my best friend in the bed we picked out together, in the house we built together. So please, Valerio, tell me what it actually is. Celine stretched like a cat, not even bothering to cover herself completely. Oh, honey, she purred. Did you really think someone like him would be satisfied with someone like you forever? And that's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was calculated, chosen. This was the real Celine, the one who'd been hiding behind hugs and hand-me-downs and fake friendship for 20 years. The one who'd been waiting for her chance to take what she thought should have been hers all along. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't give either of them the satisfaction. I just turned around and walked out of that room, out of that house, out of the life I thought I knew, with one hand pressed against my stomach and a question burning in my mind. If they knew who I really was, would they have been so quick to betray me? What would you do if you discovered your best friend and spouse together? Drop your answer below, because this story is far from over, and what happens next will shake everything you think you know about revenge, justice, and what it really means to know your worth. I drove for hours that night, rain blurring the windshield until I couldn't tell where the storm ended and my tears began. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, and all I could think about was that smirk on Celine's face. Not guilt, not shame, pride. like she'd won some twisted game I didn't even know we were playing. The GPS led me to the only place that ever felt like home. Mama's house. That same tiny place on Maple Street where I learned to be grateful for hand-me-downs and believed that struggling meant you were less than. I sat in the driveway for 20 minutes, engine running, one hand still pressed against my belly where a secret grew that suddenly felt too heavy to carry alone. The porch light flicked on before I even knocked. Mama stood in the doorway wearing her old blue robe, silver hair loose around her shoulders, and the look on her face told me she already knew. Mothers always know. Baby girl, she whispered, opening her arms. I collapsed into her the way I hadn't since I was 7 years old, and Jessica Hartman made me feel small. But this time, the pain cut deeper than childhood cruelty. This time, the people who were supposed to love me had carved out my heart and served it to each other on a silver platter. We sat at her kitchen table, the same one where I'd done homework and eaten countless bowls of soup when money was too tight for anything fancier. She made chamomile tea without asking, knew I needed something warm to hold on to while my world crumbled. Tell me everything, she said simply. So I did. Every detail, every moment. The perfume I'd ignored, the late nights I'd excused, the way Celine had inserted herself into every crack of my marriage like poison seeping through floorboards. And finally, the image I knew would haunt me forever. Them, together. Her smile. Mama listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with each word until she looked like something ancient and powerful. When I finished, she stood up and walked to the old china cabinet in the corner, the one she never let me touch as a kid. She pulled out a mahogany box I'd never seen before and set it on the table between us. I should have told you a long time ago, she said quietly, but I was protecting you. Turns out, I might have protected you right into thinking you were something you're not. My heart started pounding. Mama, what are you talking about? She opened the box. Inside were papers, documents, photographs of a man I'd never met, but whose eyes looked exactly like mine. Sharp, green, seeing right through you. Your father, she began, and I held my breath because she never talked about him. Ever. His name was Vincent Rios, and he wasn't some deadbeat who ran out on us like I let you believe. She paused, meeting my eyes. He was a billionaire, Marcy, one of the richest men on the East Coast. The room tilted. No, that wasn't possible. We were poor. We struggled. I wore Celine's hand-me-downs for Christ's sake. Before you were born, Mama continued, Vincent and I had something real. But his world? It was full of sharks. People who wanted his money, his power, his connections. Everyone had an agenda. Everyone was playing an angle. She touched one of the photographs gently. When I got pregnant, he begged me to marry him. Wanted to give you everything. But I saw what that world did to people. Made them hollow. Made them mean. So I made him a deal. What kind of deal? My voice came out barely above a whisper. I'd raise you away from all of it. Let you grow up normal. Kind. Real. And when you turned 30, or when you truly needed it, I'd tell you the truth. He set up a trust. Put everything in your name. Every building, every investment, every single dollar of the Rios empire. It's been yours all along, baby. You've never been poor. You've been a princess hiding in plain clothes. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 28 years of believing I was less than, believing I should be grateful for scraps, believing that someone like Valerio choosing someone like me was a miracle. And all of it was a lie. Why? I demanded, anger rising like a flood. Why would you let me think we had nothing? Because I wanted you to know your worth had nothing to do with money. Mama's voice cracked. I wanted you to be chosen for who you are, not what you have. I wanted you to spot the gold diggers and the users before they could sink their teeth in. She laughed bitterly. Guess I failed at that part. The papers in front of me swam. Property deeds, stock certificates, bank statements with numbers that didn't make sense because they had too many zeros. The Rios empire. Construction. Real estate. Technology investments. All of it mine. All of it always mine. Vincent died 6 years ago, Mama said softly. Heart attack. But he made sure everything was ironclad. Made sure no one could touch it. But you. Made sure you'd be protected. Protected. The word tasted like ash. I wasn't protected. I was betrayed by the two people I loved most while sitting on a fortune that would have made them both think twice about throwing me away like garbage. Does anyone else know? I asked. The lawyers. The board. They've been waiting for you to claim your inheritance. I've been managing it through proxies, keeping it quiet like Vincent wanted. But Marcy, she gripped my hands. It's time. Time to stop hiding. Time to show them exactly who they just destroyed. My phone buzzed. Valerio. 15 calls since I'd walked out. I'd ignore them all. The voicemails were probably full of excuses, apologies that meant nothing, promises from a man who'd already broken every vow that mattered. I'm pregnant, I said suddenly, and Mama's eyes filled with tears. Found out today. Was going to surprise him with little baby shoes and champagne and joy. Instead, I found him with her. Mama pulled me close. That baby is a blessing. Your blessing. And you're going to raise that child knowing they come from strength, not shame. You're going to show them what it means to rise from betrayal and build something beautiful anyway. I want a divorce, I said, and saying it out loud made it real. I want him gone. I want her gone. I want to burn down everything they thought they knew about me and rise from the ashes wearing a crown they never knew existed. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Mama smiled, and it was the kind of smile that meant war. First thing tomorrow, we call the lawyers. We claim what's yours. And we make sure everyone knows that Marcy Duval isn't the poor little girl they thought they could discard. She's Marcy Rios. And she's about to remind this whole damn town what it means to underestimate a queen. I looked down at the documents again, at my father's face in the photographs, at the empire he'd built and hidden away from me like a secret weapon waiting for the right moment. This was that moment. Valerio thought he'd traded up when he chose Celine. Celine thought she'd stolen the prize. But neither of them had any idea what they'd actually done. They'd awakened something they should have left sleeping. They'd picked a fight with someone who'd just discovered she'd been holding all the cards the entire time. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Celine. The message preview showed on my screen. We need to talk. It's not what you think. I almost laughed. 20 years of friendship, and she still thought I was stupid enough to fall for that. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, I stop being the girl who got betrayed. Tomorrow, I become the woman who makes betrayal the biggest mistake they ever made. But tonight, I sit in my mama's kitchen, drink chamomile tea, and plan exactly how to dismantle two lies with nothing but truth and a signature on papers that prove I was never the one who needed them. They needed me. Have you ever discovered you had power you never knew existed? Drop a comment about a time you realized you were stronger than you thought, because what happens next is going to show Valerio and Celine exactly what real power looks like. The law offices of Morrison and Clark sat on the 42nd floor of the Sterling building downtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of quiet that only serious money can buy. I walked through those doors at 9 a.m. sharp wearing a dress Mama had pulled from storage, designer label I'd never heard of, fitting me like it was made for my body specifically. Because it was. Vincent had ordered it years ago, hoping someday I'd wear it. Today felt like the right someday. Richard Morrison stood when I entered, 60-something with silver hair and sharp eyes that had probably closed 1,000 deals before breakfast. But when he looked at me, really looked at me, his whole face changed. My God, he breathed. You have his eyes. Vincent's eyes. I sat down in the leather chair across from his massive desk, and for the first time in my life, I didn't make myself smaller to fit the space. I took up room. Owned it. My mother tells me I have more than his eyes, I said evenly. I believe I have his empire, too. Morrison smiled, the kind of smile that meant finally. Miss Rios, we've been waiting 28 years for this conversation. Your father made arrangements that would make Fort Knox jealous. Everything is ironclad. Everything is yours. The question is, are you ready to claim it? Was I ready? 2 days ago, I would have said no. 2 days ago, I was still Marcy Duval, the poor girl who married up, the woman grateful for crumbs. But that woman died in a bedroom doorway while rain hammered the windows and her best friend smiled like a demon who'd finally won. I'm ready, I said, and I want to start with a divorce. Morrison's expression shifted to business mode. Valerio Ashford. We've had him investigated since your mother called yesterday. Would you like to know what we found? Tell me everything. He slid a folder across the desk. Thick, heavy, full of secrets Valerio thought were buried. His business was struggling more than he'd admitted. Loans from questionable sources. Investments going south. He'd been counting on my assumed poverty to hide his own financial bleeding. Thought he married down when really I could have bought his entire company with pocket change. The affair with Celine Crawford. Morrison continued, flipping pages. Started approximately 8 months ago. She approached him at a business conference in Chicago. Deliberately targeted him. Our investigators believe she's been planning this for over a year. My stomach turned. A year. While I was planning anniversary surprises and cooking his favorite meals and believing in us, she was plotting, hunting, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Why? I asked, though I already knew. She could have had anyone. According to her search history and financial records, she's been obsessed with wealth and status since high school. Multiple credit cards maxed out. Living beyond her means. She saw Valerio as a meal ticket. Saw your marriage as an obstacle. Morrison's voice hardened. She's a predator, Miss Rios. Plain and simple. The words should have hurt more. Instead, they felt like clarity. Like finally understanding a language I'd been hearing my whole life, but never quite translated. Celine didn't betray me on impulse. She betrayed me on purpose. With planning. With intention. With malice. What about the divorce? I asked, pushing emotion down where it couldn't interfere with business. California is a no-fault state, but adultery affects asset division and spousal support. However, Morrison leaned forward. Ils what il propose. We file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. We don't mention the affair publicly yet. We let Valerio think he's getting a standard settlement. Then, when the papers are signed and everything is finalized, we release your true identity. Why wait? Because right now, he thinks he has leverage. Thinks you need him, his money, his name. If he knows who you really are, he'll fight for a piece of your empire. He'll drag it out, make it ugly, try to claim he's entitled to your inheritance. But if we keep him in the dark until after the divorce is final, he gets nothing. He signs away any claim to your assets, thinking he's the one with the upper hand. It was brilliant. Cruel, maybe, but brilliant. Do it, I said. Morrison nodded, already making notes. We'll have papers drawn up by end of day. You'll need to move out of the shared residence or have him removed. I recommend the latter. It's your property now, by the way. The house is in your name as of this morning. We've been transferring assets all night. How is that possible? I only found out yesterday. Your fathers will stipulated that once you were informed of your inheritance, everything transfers immediately. No waiting period. No probate. Just instant ownership. Vincent wanted to make sure that when you finally stepped into your power, nothing could stop you. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. No crying. Not yet. Later, I could grieve for the father I never knew and the life I never had. Right now, I needed to be still. There's one more thing, Morrison said carefully. The board of Rios Industries wants to meet you. They've been running the company under your mother's guidance, but they need an official CEO. That's you if you want it. Or we can appoint someone and you remain a silent owner. Your choice. CEO. Me. The girl who wore hand-me-downs and believed she was lucky to be chosen. Now running an empire worth billions. Set up the meeting. I heard myself say, I want to understand everything. Every division, every asset, every decision that's been made in my name. If I'm going to own this, I'm going to own it completely. Morrison's smile was genuine this time. Vincent would be proud. Hell, I'm proud and I just met you. We spent the next 3 hours going through paperwork. Signatures. Transfers. Accounts. By lunch, I was officially the wealthiest woman in the state under 40, and nobody knew it but the people in that room. My phone rang as I was leaving. Valerio. Again. I almost sent it to voicemail, but something made me answer. Maybe I wanted to hear his voice one more time before I destroyed him. Maybe I was testing myself, seeing if my resolve would crack. Marcy, thank God, he gasped. Where are you? We need to talk. Please. Just come home and let me explain. Explain what exactly? My voice was ice. Explain how you accidentally fell into bed with my best friend? Explain how 8 months of lying to my face was somehow a misunderstanding. Silence. Then, how did you know it was 8 months? Does it matter? It happened. That's enough. She means nothing, he said quickly. Too quickly. Desperate. It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. But you and me, Marcy, we're real. We have history. We have a life together. Don't throw that away over one mistake. One mistake. Like it was a forgotten anniversary or a missed dinner reservation. Like he hadn't taken a sledgehammer to every promise we'd made. I want a divorce, I said simply. You'll receive papers tomorrow. Sign them. No, I won't sign anything. We can fix this. Counseling, whatever you need. I love you, Marcy. I know I screwed up, but I love you. You don't even know me, I said, and it was the truest thing I'd ever spoken. You never did. Sign the papers, Valerio, or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you were sleeping with and how long you've been lying. Your business partners, your family, your clients. Everyone. You wouldn't. But his voice wavered. Try me. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, adrenaline and anger and something else. Something that felt almost like freedom. Morrison appeared at my elbow, holding another folder. One last thing before you go. Your father left you a letter. I was instructed to give it to you only after you'd claimed your inheritance. He wanted you to read it when you were standing in your full power, not before. He handed me an envelope, heavy paper, my name written in handwriting I'd never seen but somehow recognized. Like genetics carried the memory of his pen strokes. I waited until I was in my car to open it, hands trembling as I unfolded the single page. My dearest Marcy, if you're reading this, then you've finally learned who you are. Not who the world told you to be, but who you've always been. Arios, my daughter, my legacy. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to watch you grow. Sorry I couldn't protect you from the pain that I know brought you to this moment. But I'm not sorry you experienced life without the weight of wealth. Because now you know something most rich people never learn. You know your own worth has nothing to do with money. You know how to spot fake love from real. You know the difference between people who want you and people who want what you have. Use that knowledge. Build something beautiful. And remember, real diamonds don't need to shine loudly. They just are. All my love, Vincent. I cried then, sitting in my car in a parking garage, holding a letter from a dead man who somehow knew exactly what I needed to hear. He'd given me poverty on purpose, not to hurt me, but to prepare me, to make sure that when I finally stepped into power, I'd wield it with wisdom instead of ego. Valerio and Celine had no idea what was coming. They thought they'd destroyed a weak woman. Instead, they'd awakened a queen who'd just discovered her kingdom. And queens don't beg for mercy. They deliver justice. What would you say in a letter to your younger self? Drop your thoughts below, because tomorrow, Marcy's about to show two traitors what real power looks like. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. The news broke 3 days later, and it broke like a tsunami hitting a sandcastle. I'd signed the divorce papers at Morrison's office with Mama standing beside me, her hand on my shoulder like a general watching her soldier claim victory. Valerio had signed too, thinking he was getting off easy, thinking he'd keep his assets, his reputation, his life intact. The fool actually looked relieved when his lawyer confirmed no alimony, no property division, nothing but a clean break. He had no idea he'd just signed away any claim to a fortune that would have set his grandchildren's grandchildren up for life. 20 minutes after the divorce was finalized, Morrison released the statement. Simple, elegant, devastating. Marcy Rios, sole heir to the Rios Empire and newly appointed CEO of Rios Industries, announces her transition to active leadership following the dissolution of her marriage. The company looks forward to her innovative vision and continued growth under her direction. I watched it happen in real time. Social media exploded. Business journals picked it up. Entertainment sites ran with it. By noon, my face was everywhere. Not as Marcy Duval, the nobody who got cheated on, but as Marcy Rios, billionaire heiress who'd been hiding in plain sight. The headlines were poetry. Secret heiress divorces cheating husband, reveals billion-dollar empire. Rios' legacy emerges. How one woman hid her fortune in plain sight. From rags to riches? No, just riches wearing rags. My favorite was from the business section. Valerio Ashford, the man who divorced a fortune. My phone became unusable within an hour. Calls from reporters, old classmates, distant relatives who suddenly remembered we were family, business contacts wanting meetings, and 36 messages from Valerio that went from confusion to panic to rage in rapid succession. "What the hell is this?" his last text read. "You lied to me? You've been rich this whole time, and let me think I was supporting you? Call me now." I blocked his number and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not anger, just empty space where love used to live. Celine's messages were different. She'd sent exactly one. "You selfish bitch. You kept this from everyone. From me, your best friend. I hope you're happy destroying people's lives." The audacity. The absolute audacity of a woman who'd slept with my husband for 8 months, who'd smiled at me while plotting my destruction, now claiming I was the villain for not disclosing my financial status. Like I owed her a spreadsheet of my assets alongside our friendship bracelets. I was at Mama's house when the first news van showed up, then another, then 5 more. Reporters camped outside like it was a royal wedding, all wanting the exclusive story of a secret heiress who'd lived as a commoner. "We need to move you," Morrison said over the phone. "I'm sending security. You'll stay at the Rios penthouse downtown until this dies down." The Rios penthouse. My penthouse. 40 stories up with views of the entire city. The kind of place I'd only seen in magazines and assumed was for people who mattered more than me. Turned out I was exactly that kind of people. I just hadn't known it. Security arrived in black SUVs, professional and efficient, escorting Mama and me through the crowd of reporters shouting questions I didn't answer. The penthouse was everything you'd expect. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. But what struck me wasn't the luxury. It was the photos on the mantle. Me, at every age. School pictures Mama must have sent to Vincent. Birthday photos. Candids of me laughing, reading, just existing. He'd been watching from a distance my whole life, loving me through frames and glass, waiting for the day I'd stand in this space and understand. He had a whole room, Mama said quietly, standing beside me, full of things he bought for you over the years. Dresses for every occasion. Books he thought you'd love. Jewelry from Milestones. All waiting. All hoping. My hand went to my stomach. Still flat, but not for long. This baby would never meet their grandfather, but they'd know him through stories. Through the empire he built. Through the lessons he'd embedded in every brick of this foundation. The intercom buzzed. Security. "Miss Rios, there's a Valerio Ashford here demanding to see you." Should we remove him? Part of me wanted to say yes. Send him away. Let him drown in the consequences of his choices without giving him a single word of explanation. But another part, the part that still remembered loving him, needed to face him one last time. "Send him up," I said. Mama touched my arm. "You don't have to do this." "I know, but I want to. I want to see exactly what he threw away." Valerio looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. Rumpled suit, bloodshot eyes, stubble that was more neglect than fashion. He stumbled when he saw the penthouse. Actually stumbled, like his legs forgot how to hold him up. "Marcy," he whispered. "This is real. All of it. All of it," I confirmed, standing by the windows with the city spread behind me like a kingdom. Every building you see out there with a Rios logo, Mine. Every business headline with my father's name, now my name. Everything you thought you knew about me? Wrong. You lied to me. His voice cracked somewhere between accusation and grief. "No, I didn't know. My mother kept it from me to protect me from people exactly like you. People who measure worth in dollar signs and see humans as transactions." I turned to face him fully. "But here's the funny thing, Valerio. Even if I had known, even if I'd told you from day one that I was a billionaire heiress, you still would have cheated." "Know how I know?" He said nothing. Because cheating isn't about what the betrayed person lacks. It's about what the cheater lacks. Character, integrity, basic human decency. You didn't cheat because I wasn't enough. You cheated because you aren't enough. "Celine pursued me," he said desperately. She was aggressive, wouldn't take no for an answer. I was weak. I made a mistake. For 8 months? That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Multiple choices. Hundreds of them. Every text. Every lie. Every time you left our bed to go to hers. I walked closer, watching him shrink. You want to know the worst part? I would have forgiven you eventually. If you'd come clean, if you'd shown real remorse, if you'd fought for us, maybe I would have found a way. But you didn't confess. I caught you. And even then, Celine was smiling. Like my pain was her trophy. I'll do anything, he pleaded. Therapy. Public apology. I'll cut her off completely. Just give me another chance. Please. You're not listening. I don't want to give you another chance. I don't want your apologies or your promises. I want you gone from my life completely. The divorce is final. You have no claim to anything. And in case you're thinking about running to tabloids or trying to sell your story, remember that I have lawyers who make yours look like law school dropouts. His face changed then, desperation shifting to anger. You think you're better than me now? Because you have money? You're still the same girl who wore Goodwill clothes and ate cafeteria leftovers. Money doesn't change that. You're right, I said calmly. Money doesn't change who I am. It just reveals who you are. A man who values wealth over loyalty. Who chose ego over love. Who's standing in a penthouse he'll never own. Talking to a woman he'll never touch again. Realizing too late that he gambled his future on a woman who only wanted him because she thought he was all I had. Valerio went pale. What? Celine didn't want you. She wanted what she thought you represented. Status. Wealth. Victory over me. But now... I smiled, and it wasn't kind. Now she's just the mistress who broke up a marriage for a man who's broke compared to his ex-wife. How's that working out for her? Still returning your calls? The silence answered for him. Get out, I said quietly. Security will escort you. And Valerio? Don't come back. Don't call. Don't send messages through mutual friends. You're a chapter that's closed. I'm writing new ones now. And you're not even a footnote. He left without another word. Shoulders slumped, spirit broken. Looking like a man who'd just realized he'd sold a winning lottery ticket for $1. Security escorted him to the elevator, and I watched from the window as he emerged on street level, immediately swarmed by reporters asking questions he couldn't answer without incriminating himself further. Mama appeared at my side with tea, always tea, her remedy for everything. How do you feel? She asked. Like I just exhaled for the first time in years. I took the cup, warmth spreading through my fingers. He kept saying I lied, but he's the one who lied about everything that mattered. Fidelity, love, basic respect. And he has the audacity to feel betrayed because I didn't disclose my bank balance. That's ego, baby. It can't accept that it was wrong, so it rewrites history to make itself the victim. Down below, I could see Valerio getting into his car. Not the sleek Mercedes he usually drove. Something older, beaten, reality hitting him in waves. Tomorrow, his business partners would distance themselves. Clients would quietly move to competitors. Social invitations would dry up. Not because of the affair, but because in our world, losing mattered more than morality. He'd be fine eventually. Men like him always landed on their feet. But he'd never be what he could have been if he'd just chosen loyalty over lust. And Celine? I hadn't heard from her since that one bitter text, but I knew exactly where she was. Morrison's investigators kept me updated. She was living with her parents again, credit cards all declined, social media flooded with people calling her every name imaginable. The woman who'd spent 20 years climbing social ladders had just fallen off every rung at once. My phone buzzed. The board wanted to meet tomorrow. My first official day as CEO of Rios Industries. My first day stepping into the role my father built and my mother protected. My first day proving that you don't need to be raised in boardrooms to command them. I pressed my hand to my stomach again. In a few months, there'd be a baby. A little girl or boy who'd grow up knowing their worth wasn't tied to their bank account. Who'd understand that real power comes from character, not capital. Who'd have the advantage of wealth, but the wisdom of humility. Tomorrow, I said to Mama, everything changes again. Again. She smiled. Honey, you've been changing every day since you walked out of that house. Tomorrow, you just make it official. She was right. I'd already transformed from victim to victor. Tomorrow was just paperwork. What's the biggest misconception someone had about you that you got to correct? Drop it below, because next chapter, Marcy walks into her first board meeting and shows an entire industry what happens when you underestimate someone wearing a crown they forgot they owned. The Rios Industries building stood like a monument to everything I'd never known I had. 60 stories of glass and steel reflecting morning sun like a mirror, showing the city its own ambition. I stood on the sidewalk staring up at it, wearing a power suit Mama had pulled from that storage room, full of my father's hopes. Navy blue, perfectly tailored. The kind of armor businesswomen wear when they're about to walk into a room full of men who think they don't belong. Morrison met me in the lobby, along with a woman who introduced herself as Patricia Chun, CFO. The board is waiting, Patricia said, her smile professional but warm. Fair warning, not all of them are happy about this transition. Some preferred the status quo. Anonymous ownership, appointed management, minimal interference. And now they get me, I said. Now they get you, she confirmed. Vincent's daughter. Someone who actually has a stake in this company beyond quarterly bonuses. That scares some people. Good. Let them be scared. Fear meant respect, even if they hadn't earned mine yet. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending into a different atmosphere. One where oxygen cost more and mistakes meant millions. The boardroom was exactly what you'd picture. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, windows overlooking the city like gods watching mortals scramble below. 12 people sat around that table. 11 men. One woman besides Patricia. They all stood when I entered, but their eyes told different stories. Some curious, some skeptical, two outright hostile. One older man at the far end, silver beard and expensive watch, looked at me like I was a child playing dress-up in Daddy's office. Gentlemen, Ms. Chun, Morrison began. May I present Marcy Rios, your new CEO and majority shareholder. I didn't wait for invitation. Just walked to the head of the table, the chair that had been Vincent's, the chair that Mama had kept warm through proxies and careful management, the chair that was always meant to be mine. Good morning, I said, voice steady. I know this is unexpected. Most of you have been running this company smoothly for years without interference. You're probably wondering what a 28-year-old woman with no business school degree is doing sitting in this chair. The hostile ones nodded slightly. At least they were honest. Here's what I'm not going to do, I continued. I'm not going to pretend I know everything about construction logistics or real estate portfolios or technology investments. I don't, yet. But here's what I do know. I know this company was built on integrity, on quality work and honest dealings. My father didn't become successful by cutting corners or screwing people over. He became successful by being better than the competition and making sure everyone knew it. I pulled out the folder Morrison had prepared. 6 months of analysis. Every division, every profit margin, every concerning trend the board had been quietly ignoring. I also know that our downtown development project is 3 months behind schedule and $2 million over budget. I know our Seattle expansion hit regulatory snags that could have been avoided with better local research. I know 2 of our major clients are considering taking their business elsewhere because they feel we've gotten complacent. The room went silent. Patricia hid a smile behind her coffee cup. Silver beard leaned forward. With respect, Miss Rios, those are normal business challenges. Nothing we can't handle. With respect right back, I countered, normal challenges don't excuse poor performance. My father built this empire by exceeding expectations, not meeting them. If we're just handling challenges, we're not growing. We're coasting, and coasting leads to decline. What exactly are you proposing? This from a younger man, mid-40s, Mark is something according to his nameplate. I'm proposing we remember who we are. Rios Industries doesn't deliver adequate. We deliver exceptional. That downtown project? I want our best people on it. I want us eating the budget overrun ourselves, delivering it on time, and making sure everyone in this city knows we finish what we start. The Seattle expansion? I'm flying there personally next week to meet with regulators and smooth things over. And those clients considering leaving? I'm taking them to dinner. Tonight. All of them. Because relationships matter more than contracts. That's a significant time investment, Silverbeard said doubtfully. You'll be spreading yourself thin. I've spent my whole life being underestimated because of how I looked or where I came from. I'm used to working twice as hard to prove I belong. That doesn't scare me. What scares me is standing still while the company my father built loses its edge because everyone got comfortable. Patricia spoke up. For what it's worth, I've reviewed Marcy's proposals. They're aggressive but sound. The downtown project recovery plan alone could save us millions in penalties and restore client confidence. And her approach to stakeholder relations is exactly what we've been lacking. Easy for you to say, one of the hostile men muttered. You didn't build this company from the ground up like some of us did. I turned to him slowly. You're right. I didn't build it. My father did. And then he trusted all of you to maintain it while waiting for me to be ready. So let me ask you something. If you built this company, if you poured your blood and sweat into these foundations, would you want people running it who were satisfied with good enough? Or would you want people who were hungry to make it better? He had no answer to that. I'm not here to replace anyone. I continued, softening my tone slightly. I'm here to lead. There's a difference. You all have expertise I don't have. Experience I haven't earned yet. But I have something you might be lacking right now. Vision, urgency, and frankly, everything to prove. My name is on this building. My father's legacy is in every brick. I'm not going to let it fade because I was too afraid to step up or too proud to admit what I don't know. The room shifted. Not quite acceptance, but the hostility was cracking. Silverbeard sat back in his chair, studying me with new eyes. Your father, he said slowly, would come into this room with ideas that sounded insane. Then he'd execute them flawlessly and make us all look like geniuses for following him. You sound like him. Same fire. Same refusal to accept limitations. I'll take that as a compliment. It is. He smiled for the first time. All right, Miss Rios. You want to prove yourself? Show us. But understand, we're watching. Closely. One mistake at this level can cost millions. Can destroy reputations. Can sink divisions. I understand. And I'm ready. We spend the next 4 hours going through every aspect of the business. Property holdings. Investment portfolios. Pending acquisitions. Probable projects. Growth opportunities. My head spun with information, but I absorbed it all, asked questions that made them pause and reconsider assumptions, pushed back on strategies that seemed lazy. By lunch, I'd gained grudging respect from everyone except one man who clearly wouldn't be satisfied until I failed. That was fine. Every leader needs at least one skeptic to keep them sharp. Patricia walked me out afterward. That was impressive. Most new CEOs spend their first board meeting nodding and learning. You came in swinging. I don't have time to ease into this, I said. Every day I spend getting comfortable is a day Valerio and Celine get to control the narrative about who I am. I need to show the world I'm not just some scorned wife with a trust fund. I'm a CEO who earned this chair through birthright and will keep it through performance. Speaking of narratives, Patricia pulled out her phone. You're trending. Again, someone leaked photos of you entering the building this morning. The comments are interesting. I looked at the screen. Hundreds of comments. Thousands. Some supportive. Many skeptical. A few outright cruel. She'll run that company into the ground in 6 months. Daddy's money doesn't equal business sense. Pretty face, empty head. Classic Nepo baby. But others defended me. She stood up to a cheating husband and a backstabbing best friend with more grace than most people manage. She'll be fine. Vincent Rios was a genius. Maybe genius runs in families. Give her a chance before you judge. You'd be surprised what betrayal can teach you about strength. I handed the phone back. Let them talk. Words are just noise. Results are what matter. And I'm about to deliver results that'll make them forget they ever doubted me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Marcy. The voice was female, shaking, desperate. Celine. How did you get this number? I need to talk to you. Please. Just 5 minutes. Face to face. Every instinct screamed no. Hang up. Block her. Let her drown in the consequences of her choices without throwing her a rope. But curiosity won. I needed to see what desperation looked like on the face of someone who'd smiled while destroying me. Fine. 5 minutes. The coffee shop on Main Street. 1 hour. I hung up before she could thank me. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That sounded ominous. My ex-best friend wants to meet. The one who was sleeping with my husband. And you going? I need closure. Real closure. Not the kind you get from blocking numbers and moving on. The kind where you look someone in the eye and understand exactly who they always were. I check my watch. Besides, I have time before those client dinners tonight. Might as well handle all my unfinished business in one day. An hour later, I walked into Rosie's diner, the same place Mama used to work double shifts, the same place Celine and I had shared countless meals and secrets and moments I thought mattered. She was already there, sitting in the back booth, looking nothing like the polished predator who'd smirked at me from my bed. She looked broken, hair unwashed, makeup smudged like she'd been crying for days, cheap clothes that screamed desperation instead of fashion. When she saw me, she started crying harder. "Marcy," she sobbed. "Thank God you came. I didn't think you would." I slid into the booth across from her, keeping my face neutral. "You have 5 minutes. Talk." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I was jealous and stupid, and I hurt you in ways you didn't deserve." The words tumbled out like she'd been rehearsing them. "But you have to understand, watching you get everything I wanted, it drove me crazy. Valerio, the marriage, the life. And I thought if I could just have him, I'd finally feel like I was enough. So you destroyed our friendship and my marriage because of your insecurity?" I said it calmly, like discussing weather. "That's your explanation? I know it's not good enough. I know nothing I say can fix this. But Marcy, please. Everyone hates me now. I lost my job, my apartment. My parents barely speak to me. And Valerio." She laughed bitterly. "He dropped me the second the divorce was final. Said I was a mistake. That he never loved me. That I was just convenient. And you want what from me? Sympathy? Forgiveness? Money?" She flinched at the last word. "I don't want your money. I just want my friend back. The person who knew me before all this. The person who loved me despite my flaws." I studied her, really looked at her, saw the girl who defended me against Jessica Hartman, saw the teenager who'd shared clothes and dreams, saw the woman who'd plotted for a year to steal my husband. All the same person, all true at once. "You want honesty?" I leaned forward. "You were never my friend, Celine. Friends don't keep score. Friends don't resent your happiness. Friends don't see your marriage as a competition they need to win. You were playing a game I didn't even know existed, and when you finally made your move, you smiled about it. That smile told me everything I needed to know about who you really are." "I panicked," she whispered. "When you walked in, I panicked and my face did that thing it does when I'm nervous. It wasn't pride. It was fear. Liar." The word came out sharp. "You texted me the next day calling me selfish for not sharing my financial status. That wasn't fear. That was entitlement. You genuinely believed you deserved access to every part of my life, including information I didn't even have about myself. That's not friendship. That's ownership. Please," she begged. "I have nothing left. No job, no money, no future. You have everything. Can't you just help me? For old time's sake." And there it was. The real reason for this meeting. Not apology. Not closure. Money. She betrayed me for what she thought Valerio had. And now she was crawling back for what I actually had. "No," I said simply. "No." She looked genuinely shocked. "Just like that? After 20 years of friendship, you're going to let me suffer? You let me suffer. You helped cause my suffering. You smiled while I shattered. And now you want me to rescue you from consequences you created?" I stood up. "Here's what I'll do instead. Nothing. I won't help you, but I won't hurt you either. I won't call in favors to keep you unemployed. Won't spread rumors or sabotage your future. I'll simply let you face exactly what you built. That's more mercy than you showed me." "You're heartless," she spat, tears gone, replaced by rage. "You think you're better than me because you have money? You're still the same pathetic girl who needed me to defend her. Without me, you'd have been nothing. Without you," I corrected, "I'd have been exactly who I am now, just with one less betrayal to recover from. Goodbye, Celine. Truly, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. But you won't find it with me." I walked out of that diner and didn't look back. Didn't let myself feel guilty or sad or anything except free. Free from a friendship that was always poisoned. Free from the girl who thought she was less than. Free from every lie that had shaped the first 28 years of my life. My phone buzzed. Patricia, client dinners are confirmed. All 3 companies. They're curious about you. Excited even. This could be huge.
Tonight, I'd wine and dine business partners and show them Rios Industries wasn't just surviving the transition. It was thriving because of it. Tomorrow, I'd fly to Seattle and fix problems that should have been prevented. Next week, I'd tour the downtown project and light a fire under every contractor who thought good enough was acceptable. And eventually, when my daughter was born, I'd tell her about her grandfather who built empires, her grandmother who protected legacies, and her mother who learned that betrayal is just a doorway to becoming who you were always meant to be. Valerio and Celine would fade into footnotes. Cautionaritales. Examples of what happens when you mistake someone's kindness for weakness and their humility for poverty. But me? I was just getting started. Do you believe in second chances for people who betray you? Or is some damage too deep to repair? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because next time, Marcy faces her biggest test, yet when the media digs deeper into her past and threatens to expose secrets even she didn't know existed. The photograph hit my desk at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, delivered in a manila envelope with no return address. Just my name typed on the front and a single picture inside that made my blood run cold. It was my father, Vicente Hughes, but he wasn't alone. He was standing with a woman who wasn't my mother, and she was holding a child who looked about 5 years old. The photo was dated 3 years before I was born. I stared at it until Patricia knocked on my office door, carrying coffee and the morning briefings I'd requested. She took one look at my face and set everything down carefully. "What's wrong?" she asked. I slid the photo across the desk. She picked it up, studied it, and her expression shifted from concern to understanding to something that looked like she'd been expecting this. "You know something?" I said. It wasn't a question. Patricia sat down heavily. "Your father had a complicated past. Most powerful men do. But he was always clear about one thing. You were his priority. His legacy. His redemption. Redemption for what? Having another family before me? Having siblings I never knew about?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "Who are they, Patricia? And why am I just finding out now?" "I don't know who they are," she admitted. "But someone wants you to know they exist. Someone who's trying to destabilize you right when you're gaining traction as CEO. Think about it. You've been in this position for 3 weeks. You've secured 2 major contracts, fixed the Seattle expansion, brought the downtown project back on schedule. You're making enemies by being competent." She was right. Success bred resentment, especially when it came from someone people had written off. But this wasn't about business jealousy. This was personal. This was about family secrets and leverage, and someone playing a game I didn't understand yet. "Find them," I told Patricia. "Hire investigators. I don't care what it costs. I need to know who these people are, what they want, and who sent me this photo." "Already on it," she said, pulling out her phone. "Morrison's team is the best. They'll have answers by end of day." But answers came faster than that. By noon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Miss Rios." The voice was male, smooth, calculated. "Did you enjoy the photograph?" "Who is this?" "Someone who knows things about your father that would make headlines. Things that could damage the perfect legacy you're trying to build. Things that could make investors nervous about the Rios name. Blackmail. Of course. Money attracted vultures, and I was fresh meat." "What do you want?" I asked, already knowing the answer. $10 million. Transferred to an account I'll provide. In exchange, you get every photo, every document, every piece of evidence about Vincent's other life. And my silence. Forever. And if I refuse, then the media gets everything. Your father's affair. The other child. Questions about inheritance rights and whether you're really the sole heir. It'll tie you up in courts for years. Destroy your credibility. Make you look like a fraud who's been hiding uncomfortable truths. My mind raced. 10 million was nothing compared to my net worth. I could pay it and make this disappear. But paying blackmailers never worked. They always came back. Always demanded more. This would never end unless I ended it. "I'll think about it," I said. "Give me 24 hours." You have 12. TikTok, Miss Rios. He hung up. I immediately called Morrison. Explained everything. The photo. The call. The threat. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. There's something you should know, he finally said. Your father did have a relationship before your mother. Her name was Caroline Winters. She had a son, Marcus. But Vincent ended things before you were conceived. He provided financial support for the child through a trust, completely separate from your inheritance. Marcus is now 42 years old. Marcus. The name clicked. Marcus Winters sits on my board. Mid-40s. Always seemed skeptical of me. The same, Morrison confirmed. He's known about you his whole life. Watch from a distance while Vincent built an empire for you instead of him. His mother died 10 years ago. He received his trust fund at 30, but it was a fraction of what you inherited. I'm guessing resentment has been building for a long time. He's blackmailing me? His own half-sister? People do terrible things when they feel cheated. And from his perspective, Vincent chose you over him. Gave you everything while he got scraps. That kind of rejection leaves scars. I thought about Marcus in that boardroom. The way he'd looked at me. Not just skeptical. Hungry. Like he was waiting for me to fail, so he could swoop in and claim what he thought should have been his all along. What do I do? I asked. You call his bluff. Make the truth public yourself before he can weaponize it. Control the narrative. Show that you have nothing to hide and everything to gain by being transparent. It'll take the power out of his hands. It was risky. Exposing family drama could damage the company's reputation. Could make me look weak or unstable. But Morrison was right. Secrets only had power when they stayed secret. Once exposed, they were just facts. And fact could be managed. Set up a press conference, I said. Tomorrow morning. I'll tell them everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Marcus. About a little boy who watched his father love someone else's daughter more. About resentment that festered for decades until it turned into this. Part of me understood. Part of me even sympathized. But understanding didn't excuse blackmail. Sympathy didn't make betrayal acceptable. At 3 a.m., I got up and went to my father's study. The one Morrison had set up for me with all of Vincent's personal effects. His desk, his books, his private journals. I'd been too overwhelmed to go through them before, but now I needed to understand the man who'd created this mess. The journals were detailed, dated, honest in a way that made my chest ache. He wrote about Caroline, about loving her, but knowing it wouldn't work because she wanted the spotlight and he wanted privacy. About Marcus being born and feeling joy mixed with fear because fatherhood exposed every inadequacy. Then he wrote about meeting my mother, about falling in love with someone who saw him instead of his money, about learning he was going to be a father again and making a choice. He'd give Marcus financial security, but he'd give me everything else. His name. His empire, his complete devotion. I failed Marcus, he wrote, but I won't fail Marcy. She'll have what he couldn't, a father who's present, a legacy built on love, not obligation. Marcus will be provided for, but Marcy will be prepared for. There's a difference. I closed the journal with shaking hands. Vincent hadn't been perfect. He made choices that hurt people, but he tried to do right by everyone. Even if that meant some people got less than others. That wasn't evil. That was human. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 9, reporters were already gathering. By 9:30, social media was buzzing with speculation about what I'd announce. By 9:45, Marcus called. Don't do this, he said, voice tight. You'll regret it. The only thing I regret, I replied, is not seeing you for what you were from the beginning. You're not my brother. You're just another person who thinks they're entitled to something they didn't earn. And I'm done being anyone's target. I hung up and walked into that press conference with my head high and my story ready. Told them everything. About Vincent's past. About Marcus. About the blackmail attempt. About choosing transparency over fear. The questions came like bullets. Fast. Sharp. Meant to wound. But I answered each one honestly. Didn't deflect. Didn't spin. Just told the truth and let them decide what to do with it. By noon, the narrative shifted. Headlines changed from secret Rio scandal to CEO handles family drama with grace. Public opinion swung in my favor. People respected honesty, respected someone who controlled their own story instead of letting others write it for them. Marcus resigned from the board that afternoon. Sent a 2-sentence email. No apology. No explanation. Just gone. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving myself. Tired of people trying to tear down what I'd built before I'd even finished building it. But I couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Because somewhere inside me, a baby was growing. A daughter who'd need to see her mother stand strong when storms came. Who'd need to learn that truth was armor and honesty was power and family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was choice. Have you ever had to expose a painful truth to protect yourself? Share your story below, because resilience isn't about avoiding pain. It's about walking through it and coming out stronger on the other side. The baby kicked for the first time during a budget meeting. Just a flutter, barely noticeable, but enough to make me press pause on the presentation and touch my stomach with wonder. Patricia noticed immediately, smiled that knowing smile women share when they recognize the moment life becomes real. For months pregnant now, showing enough that tailored suits were my new best friend. The board knew. The company knew. The world knew because I'd announced it during an earnings call, refusing to hide or apologize for building a family while building an empire. The reactions were predictable. Some praised me for normalizing working motherhood. Others questioned my commitment. One particularly nasty columnist wrote that I was using pregnancy as a distraction from my inexperience. I framed that article and hung it in my office as motivation. Valerio heard about the baby through media like everyone else. Called me 17 times in one day before I finally answered just to make it stop. Is it mine? He asked. No greeting. No words. Just accusation dressed as question. Does it matter? I replied. You gave up any claim to my life when you chose her bed over our marriage. I have rights. If that's my child, I have a right to be involved. You have the rights I give you. And right now, I'm giving you nothing. If you want to be a father, you'll earn it. Through actions, not demands. Through consistency, not convenience. He sputtered something about lawyers and custody, but I hung up before he could finish. Morrison had already prepared for this. Had documents ready showing Valerio's infidelity, his financial instability, his complete absence during the pregnancy. If he wanted to fight, we'd give him one he couldn't win. But surprisingly, he didn't fight, didn't hire lawyers or make demands. Instead, he sent flowers. Every week. To my office. With cards that said things like, I'm sorry, and I want to be better, and please give me a chance. I threw the first 5 bouquets in the trash. Started donating them to hospitals after that. Figured someone might as well enjoy them, since I couldn't stomach the sight of his handwriting. The Seattle office was thriving. The downtown project finished 2 weeks early and under budget, generating headlines about the Rio's comeback. New clients approached us weekly. Stock prices climbed steadily. Everything I touched seemed to turn to gold, and I knew it couldn't last. Success, this visible, always attracted trouble. The trouble came in the form of my mother's health scare. She collapsed at home one evening, and I got the call while reviewing contracts at 11 p.m. Drove to the hospital, going 20 over the limit, pregnant, belly pressed against the steering wheel, heart in my throat. She was stable by the time I arrived. Tests showed high blood pressure and stress-related complications. Nothing life-threatening, but a warning. A reminder that she'd spent 30 years working herself to exhaustion protecting me, and now her body was demanding payment. You're retiring, I told her, sitting beside her hospital bed. Today, right now, I'm hiring a full-time nurse if needed, but you're done breaking yourself for anyone else. Baby, I'm fine. Just a little episode. Mama, you raised me alone while working 3 jobs and managing a billion-dollar empire in secret. You've earned rest. Please, let me take care of you the way you've taken care of me. She cried then. Not sad tears, relief tears. Like she'd been waiting for permission to stop carrying weight she'd shouldered for decades. I moved her into the penthouse, set up the guest suite with everything she needed, hired the best doctors money could buy, watched her slowly relax into a life where she could breathe without counting pennies or checking bank balances or worrying about tomorrow. The nursery took shape down the hall. Yellow walls because I wanted the baby to wake up to sunshine. A rocking chair that Mama said was similar to the one she'd used with me. Books already lining shelves because I wanted my daughter surrounded by stories from day one. Valerio asked to see the nursery. I said no, not because I was cruel, but because he hadn't earned access to the intimate spaces of my life. He was a stranger now, someone I used to know, someone who'd have to build a relationship with his daughter from scratch if he wanted one at all. The baby shower happened at the penthouse. Patricia organized everything. Tasteful decorations, carefully curated guest list, people from the company who'd become friends, women who understood what it meant to navigate boardrooms while planning maternity leave. Celine wasn't invited, obviously, but she sent a gift anyway, forwarded through her mother because she didn't have my new address. A handmade baby blanket with a card that read, "I hope you can forgive me someday. Congratulations on your daughter." I donated the blanket to charity. Kept the card, though. Tucked it in a drawer as evidence that some people never learned the difference between apology and manipulation. The company continued growing. We acquired a small tech startup, broke ground on a sustainable housing project, launched a scholarship program for kids from low-income backgrounds who dreamed bigger than their circumstances. Every decision was calculated, every move strategic, every success another brick in the legacy I was building. But late at night, when the city was quiet and the baby was active, I'd sit by the window and wonder what Vincent would think. Would he be proud? Disappointed? Surprised that I'd adapted so quickly to a world I never knew existed? I like to think he'd be proud. That he'd see how I use pain as fuel instead of letting it destroy me. That he'd recognize his own determination in the way I refused to accept limitations or listen to people who said I couldn't handle this. 28 weeks pregnant. Third trimester. Waddling more than walking. Ankles swollen. Back aching. But still showing up every day because leaders didn't get the luxury of weakness. Still making decisions that affected thousands of employees. Still proving that motherhood and power weren't mutually exclusive. Valerio showed up at the office unannounced one afternoon. Security called before letting him up, asking if I wanted him removed. I hesitated, hand on my belly where our daughter was doing somersaults, then said yes. Let him come. He looked different, thinner, older, humbled in a way that almost made him human again. He carried a wrapped box and stood in my office doorway, like he was afraid to enter without permission. "I know I don't deserve this," he said quietly. "Don't deserve to be here or ask for anything. But I'm asking anyway. Please let me be part of her life. Not us. I know there's no us anymore. But her. Let me be her father." I studied him, looked for the man I'd loved, and saw only fragments. Pieces of someone who could have been great if he'd made different choices. But choices had consequences, and as we're standing in front of him, visible in my pregnant belly and missing ring finger. "You'll have supervised visits," I said finally. "After she's born. Once a week. You'll pay child support even though I don't need it, because responsibility matters. You'll be consistent or you'll be nothing. No broken promises. No flaking when something more interesting comes up. She deserves better than a part-time father who's only around when it's convenient. I'll do whatever you want. Whatever it takes. This isn't about what I want. It's about what she needs. And what she needs is stability. Honesty. A father who shows up. Can you be that?" "Yes," he said. And for the first time since the betrayal, he sounded like he meant it. "Then we'll see." "But Valerio," I stood up, as imposing as someone 8 months pregnant could be. "If you hurt her the way you hurt me, there's no coming back. No second chances. No forgiveness. You'll be a stranger to your own daughter. Understand?" "Understand." He left the box on my desk. Inside was a hand-carved wooden toy. A elephant, simple but beautiful. The card said, "My father made this for me when I was born. I want her to have it. To know that despite everything, she comes from love." I kept the elephant. Put it on the nursery shelf next to books and blankets and dreams. Because even though Valerio had failed as a husband, maybe he could succeed as a father. Maybe redemption was possible for people who actually worked for it. The due date was approaching. 6 weeks away. Everything was ready. Hospital bags packed. Birth plan written. Support system in place. The company had a transition plan for my maternity leave. Patricia would handle day-to-day operations. The board would manage major decisions. I'd check in remotely, but actually take time to bond with my daughter instead of pretending I could do everything. But as I sat in the nursery that night, rocking in the chair Mama loved, I felt something shift. Not labor. Something deeper. A settling. Like all the pieces of my shattered life had finally rearranged themselves into a new pattern. Different than before. Scarred and imperfect, but whole. Betrayal had broken me. But breaking had made room for rebuilding. And what I'd built from the rubble was stronger than what existed before. What's something painful that ultimately made you stronger? Tell us in the comments, because sometimes the worst moments create the best versions of ourselves. She arrived 3 weeks early on a Wednesday morning at 4:37 a.m. Water broke while I was reviewing quarterly projections because apparently my daughter inherited my work ethic before she was even born. Mama drove me to the hospital doing 70 in a 45 zone, talking the whole way to keep me calm while I breathed through contractions that felt like my body was splitting open. Labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of pain that made betrayal seem like a paper cut. 14 hours of Mama holding my hand and Patricia sending encouraging texts and nurses who treated me like a person instead of a billionaire. 14 hours that ended with a cry, so perfect it erased every bad thing that had ever happened to me. "She's here," the doctor said, placing her on my chest. "Your daughter." She was tiny, red-faced, angry at being evicted from the only home she'd known. But perfect, absolutely perfect. Dark hair like Valerio. My eyes. Vincent's determination visible even in the way she gripped my finger with strength that seemed impossible for someone so small. "Hey, baby girl," I whispered. "I'm your mama, and I've been waiting my whole life to meet you." We named her Aloan Rios, after my mother, after strength and sacrifice and love that transcended circumstances. No hyphenated last name, no Ashford attached. She was a Rios through and through, and she'd carry that name with the pride it deserved. Valerio came to the hospital. I'd called him after she was born, honoring my promise, even though part of me wanted to keep this moment private. He stood at the nursery window, staring at Aloan like she was a miracle he didn't deserve, tears running down his face unchecked. "She's beautiful," he said. "Thank you for letting me see her, for giving me this chance. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 18 years if you've shown up consistently. If you've been the father she needed instead of the father you feel like being on any given day. I will be. I swear. We'll see." He stayed for an hour. Held her carefully like she might break. Whispered promises I hoped he'd keep and feared he wouldn't. Then he left, and it was just us. Me, Mama, and Aloan. 3 generations of Rios women figuring out this new normal. The media circus was inevitable. Paparazzi camped outside the hospital. Headlines screamed about the billionaire heiress's baby. Speculation about paternity and inheritance and whether I'd step down as CEO now that I was a mother. I ignored all of it. Let Morrison handle statements. Let Patricia manage public relations. Focused only on the tiny human who needed me more than any board meeting ever would. We went home after 2 days. The penthouse felt different with Aloan in it. Smaller somehow, despite the square footage. Like her presence filled spaces I didn't know were empty. She cried at night. Fed every 3 hours. Needed constant attention. And I loved every exhausting second of it. Mama was incredible. Stepped in when I was too tired to function. Taught me tricks she'd learned raising me alone. Rocked Aloan when I needed sleep. Reminded me that motherhood wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. The company ran smoothly without my daily presence. Patricia sent updates. The board made decisions I reviewed and approved remotely. Projects continued. Profits grew. Turned out the world didn't collapse when I took time for family. Who knew? Valerio visited every Saturday like clockwork. Brought diapers and formula, even though I had more than enough. Stayed for exactly 2 hours. held Aloan carefully, asked questions about her eating and sleeping and growing. He wasn't perfect, but he was consistent. That was something. Celine tried to visit once. Showed up at the building lobby claiming she had a gift for the baby. Security called me. I said no. She'd made her choices. They didn't include access to my daughter. She waited outside for 3 hours before finally leaving. Sent a text afterwards saying I was cruel and heartless, and she hoped my daughter never experienced the kind of rejection I was inflicting on her. I blocked her number and moved on. Some people deserve forgiveness. Others just deserve distance. Aloan was 6 weeks old when I returned to the office part-time. 3 days a week. 4-hour shifts. Mama watched her while I was gone, sending photos every hour so I didn't miss anything. It was harder than I expected. Leaving her felt like leaving part of my soul behind. But I was building something for her. A legacy she'd inherit someday. An empire that would give her choices I never had. The board welcomed me back with applause. Genuine applause. They doubted me at first, but results spoke louder than skepticism. Revenue was up 18% year over year. Employee satisfaction had increased. Public perception of Rios Industries was the highest it had been in a decade. You've done what most of us thought was impossible, Patricia said during my first meeting back. You've balanced new motherhood with running a billion-dollar company and made both look effortless. It's not effortless, I admitted. I am exhausted, constantly worried I'm failing at both. But I'm trying. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. 3 months after Aloan's birth, Forbes published their annual list of most powerful women in business. I was number 47, higher than I expected, lower than I'd eventually reach. The article focused on my transformation. From unknown heiress to respected CEO, from betrayed wife to single mother, building an empire. The quote they pulled was from an interview I'd done weeks earlier. Betrayal doesn't define you. How you rebuild does. I chose to rebuild with intention, with integrity, and with my daughter watching. That's the legacy that matters. It went viral. Women shared it. Men quoted it. Business schools used it as case study material about leadership during personal crisis. I became a symbol of something I never intended to represent. Resilience. Transformation. Proof that pain could be productive if you channeled it correctly. Valerio read the article. Call me that night after Aloan was asleep. I'm proud of you, he said simply. I know I don't have the right to be, but I am. You took the worst thing I ever did to you and used it as fuel to become this. That takes strength I'll never have. You could have it, I replied. Strength isn't genetic. It's chosen. Every day, every moment. You choose to be better or you choose to stay broken. I chose better. You can too. I'm trying. Then keep trying. For her. We hung up, and I checked on Aloan one more time before bed. She slept peacefully, tiny chest rising and falling, completely unaware that she was the reason I'd fought so hard to become someone worthy of raising her. 6 months old now. Sitting up, grabbing everything, laughing at Mama's funny faces. Growing so fast, I could barely keep up with the changes. Every milestone was a reminder that time moved whether you were ready or not. That life continued regardless of pain or plans. The downtown project won an award for sustainable development. The Seattle expansion exceeded projected profits by 40%. The scholarship program funded its first class of students. Everything I touched seemed to succeed, and I knew it wasn't luck. It was work. It was focus. It was refusing to let betrayal define my capacity. But late at night, when Aloan woke crying and I held her close, singing songs my mama sang to me, I thought about Celine, about Valerio, about Marcus and Vincent, and everyone who'd shaped this journey. And I felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Not for the pain. Never for the pain. But for what the pain revealed. About who I was. About what I could survive. About the strength that only emerges when everything else is stripped away. Betrayal had shattered me. But from the pieces, I'd built something remarkable. A company. A legacy. A daughter who'd know her worth before the world tried to tell her otherwise. And that was worth more than any apology Celine could offer or any explanation Valerio could provide. Have you ever found unexpected gifts hidden in painful experiences? Share below, because sometimes the worst chapters lead to the best endings. The photographs showed up everywhere at once. My office desk, Mama's mail books, slipped under the penthouse door. All identical, all impossible. Vincent Rios shaking hands with a man I'd never seen, standing in front of a building that, according to the property records, didn't exist in any Rios portfolio. The date stamp read 6 months before his death. I was feeding Aloan her morning bottle when Morrison called, voice tight in a way that made my stomach drop. We have a problem. A significant one. The building in the photos was real. Located in Portland. Purchased under a shell corporation that traced back to Vincent through layers of legal entities designed to hide ownership. And inside that building, evidence of a business venture nobody knew existed. Not the board. Not Patricia. Not even Mama. What kind of venture? I asked, switching Aloan to my other arm while she grabbed at my necklace. Medical research. Experimental treatments. Some of it approved. Some of it operating in legal gray areas that would make investors very nervous if it went public. Morrison paused. There's more. The man in the photo? Dr. James Chun. He disappeared 3 years ago after accusations of ethical violations. The research continued without him. Someone's been funding it, managing it, keeping it secret. You think my father was involved in something illegal? I think your father was protecting something, or someone. And now that you're in charge, whoever sent these photos wants you to know about it. The question is why? Aloan finished her bottle and immediately started fussing for more. I held her against my shoulder, patting her back rhythmically while my mind raced through possibilities. Blackmail again? Corporate espionage? A genuine whistleblower trying to expose wrongdoing? Find Dr. Chun, I said. I don't care if he's in witness protection or hiding in Tibet. Find him, and give me everything about that Portland facility. Every record, every transaction, every person who's walked through those doors. By afternoon, my office looked like a war room. Documents spread across every surface. Patricia coordinating with legal teams. Morrison on 3 conference calls simultaneously. And me, sitting in the center of it all with Aloan in a portable crib beside my desk, trying to understand how my father could build an empire on transparency while hiding something this massive. The research itself wasn't inherently wrong. Cutting-edge treatments for degenerative diseases. Trials that pushed boundaries but stayed within legal frameworks. Until they didn't. Until pressure for results led to shortcuts. Until ethical became questionable and questionable became dangerous. Vincent pulled funding 8 months before he died. Patricia said, holding up bank records. Shut down the controversial projects. Kept only the legitimate research active. But someone restarted everything after his death. Someone with access to Rios funds, but operating outside normal channels. Who has that kind of access? According to these records, you do. The money's coming from accounts in your name. Accounts that existed before you claimed your inheritance. Someone's been using your identity to fund this facility for years. The room went silent except for Aloan's soft breathing. Someone had been stealing from me before I even knew I had money to steal. Using my name, my father's legacy. Turning it into something that could destroy everything we'd built. It's Marcus, I said suddenly, pieces clicking together. Has to be. He knew about the inheritance structure. Had access through his position on the board before he resigned. He's been planning this for years. Morrison nodded slowly. The timing fits, and it explains why he tried blackmail before. He needed you destabilized. Needed you making mistakes, so when this came out, you'd look incompetent. People would question whether you deserved your position. But I didn't make mistakes. I strengthened the company instead. So now he's going nuclear. Exposing the Portland facility. Tying it to me. Making sure if he can't have the empire, I can't either. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered on speaker. Miss Rios. Having a productive day. Marcus. His voice carried that same smooth calculation as the blackmail call months ago. What do you want, Marcus? What I've always wanted. Recognition. Compensation. My fair share of what our father built. He gave you billions and handed me pocket change. Now I'm taking what should have been mine from the start. By framing me for illegal research? By destroying the company that employs thousands of people? That's not justice. That's revenge. Revenge tastes better than fairness ever did. He laughed, sharp and bitter. You have 48 hours. Transfer half your inheritance to me, or every news outlet gets documentation showing Marcy Rios funding illegal human experimentation. Your perfect reputation burns. Your company collapses. And I finally get what I deserve. You're insane. I am desperate. There's a difference. 48 hours, sister. Choose wisely. He hung up. Eloan woke, crying like she'd sensed the tension. I picked her up, held her close, breathed in that baby smell that somehow made everything both better and worse. Better because she reminded me what mattered. Worse because she was the reason I couldn't let Marcus win. She'd inherit this empire someday. I'd be damned if I let a bitter half-brother poison it before she got the chance. We're not paying him, I said firmly. We're exposing him. Every illegal transaction, every forged signature, every piece of evidence that proves he's been embezzling and framing me for years. We burn him down before he can light the match. Patricia smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. But first, we need Dr. Chun. He's the key to understanding what Vincent was really doing in Portland. Why he started it, why he stopped it, and how Marcus twisted it into something ugly. Morrison's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his expression shifted from concern to something almost like triumph. They found him. Dr. Chun. He's been working at a rural clinic in Montana under an assumed name, and he's willing to talk. Says he's been waiting for years for someone from Rios Industries to finally ask the right questions. I looked down at Eloan, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, her eyes watching me with that infinite intensity that saw everything and understood nothing yet. Book us flights to Montana, I said. All of us. We're going to get the truth. And then we're going to use it to make sure Marcus never threatens anyone again. The next 48 hours would determine everything. My reputation, my company, my daughter's future, and somewhere in Portland, evidence existed that could either vindicate me or destroy me, depending on how he played this. But I'd been underestimated before, been betrayed before, been threatened before, and every single time, I'd come back stronger. Marcus thought he was playing chess. He had no idea I'd been learning the game from masters. And I was about to show him exactly what happened when you challenged a queen on her own board. What would you do if family became your biggest enemy? Drop your answer below, because this showdown is about to get intense. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss where everything explodes and secrets 20 years in the making finally surface. Trust me, you want to see how this ends. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about family betrayal, because sometimes the people who share your blood cause the deepest cuts. Dr. James Chun lived in a cabin 40 miles outside Missoula, Montana, surrounded by pine trees and silence thick enough to drown in. He answered the door looking exactly like his photos, but aged by guilt instead of years. Gray hair, weather face, eyes that had seen things that kept him awake at night. Miss Rios, he said simply, you have your father's eyes. He'd be proud of what you've become, and horrified by what your brother's doing with his legacy. We sat at his kitchen table, scarred wood and weak coffee, while Eloan slept in her carrier, and Mama stood guard by the door like she expected Marcus to burst through any moment. Dr. Chun spread papers across the surface, documents I recognized from the Portland facility mixed with others I'd never seen. Vincent came to me 20 years ago with a problem. His mother, your grandmother, was dying from a degenerative brain disease. Doctors said nothing could be done. She'd deteriorate until she couldn't remember her own name, then stop breathing one night without warning. He touched the papers gently. Vincent asked if I'd help him find a cure. Not for her. She was too far gone. But for others. So no family would watch someone they loved disappear piece by piece. That's noble, Patricia said carefully. Why the secrecy? Because the research required methods that weren't approved yet. Stem cells, gene therapy, treatments that worked in theory but hadn't cleared the bureaucratic hurdles. Vincent funded it privately to avoid regulations that would slow us down by decades. Dr. Chin's voice cracked, and it worked. We developed treatments that could stop the disease. even reverse it in early stages. We were saving lives. So what went wrong? I asked, though I already knew. Good intentions and questionable methods always collided eventually. Pressure. Vincent wanted results. I wanted perfection. The team started cutting corners, using patients who hadn't given proper consent, falsifying data to show progress. I objected. They removed me, threatened to expose my own ethical violations if I spoke up. He looked directly at me. Your father found out 6 months later. Shut everything down immediately. Paid settlements to affected patients. Try to bury it so deep nobody would ever know. But Marcus knew, Morrison said. Marcus was on the board when it happened. Saw an opportunity. After Vincent died, he restarted the research under your name. Made it look like you were continuing your father's controversial work. Built a case that would destroy you if it ever went public. The rage came slowly, not explosive, just steady burning realization that Marcus had weaponized my father's guilt and my ignorance into a trap years in the making. Every board meeting where he questioned me, every skeptical look, every moment of doubt he planted was preparation for this. I need proof, I said. Documentation that shows Marcus restarted the facility, that ties the funding to accounts he controlled, not me. Something ironclad that even the best lawyers can't argue with. Dr. Chun pulled out a flash drive. Everything's here. Bank transfers, forged signatures, emails between Marcus and facility staff discussing how to frame you. He kept records because he's arrogant. Thought nobody would ever look close enough to find them. I took the flash drive like it was a weapon, because it was. The kind that ended wars without firing shots. The kind that turned enemies into cautionary tales. There's one more thing, Dr. Chin said quietly. The research itself? It's legitimate now. I've been consulting remotely, making sure everything's ethical and approved. The treatments work, Miss Rios. Your father's dream of curing that disease? It's real. Marcus may have corrupted the process, but the science is sound. Something shifted in my chest. Vincent hadn't just built an empire. He tried to save lives. And Marcus had taken that noble goal and twisted it into blackmail material. That was unforgivable. We flew back to California that night. 48 hours wasn't enough time to be careful, so we moved fast instead. Morrison's legal team worked around the clock. Patricia coordinated with federal investigators. I fed Aloan and changed diapers and made phone calls between burping sessions because motherhood didn't pause for corporate warfare. 24 hours before Marcus's deadline, we held a press conference. Not reactive, proactive, controlling the narrative before he could spin it. I stood at the podium wearing my armor suit, Mama beside me holding Aloan, Morrison flanking my other side with documents that would end my half-brother's freedom. Good morning. I'm here to address allegations that Rios Industries has been involved in unethical medical research. These allegations are true, but not in the way you might think. The reporters leaned forward, cameras clicking like hungry mouths. 20 years ago, my father funded experimental treatments for a disease that killed his mother. The research pushed boundaries, took risks, and ultimately saved lives. But along the way, mistakes were made. Ethical lines were crossed. My father discovered this, shut down the controversial aspects, and tried to make amends to everyone affected. I paused, letting them absorb that much before dropping the bomb. After his death, someone restarted the research without authorization. Used my name and Rios funds to continue work that violated every ethical standard we maintain. That person is Marcus Winters, my half-brother, a former board member who spent years embezzling from this company and framing me for his crimes. The room erupted. Questions shouted over questions. Cameras flashing like lightning. But I kept talking, voice steady, eyes clear. Federal investigators are currently executing search warrants at the Portland facility. Marcus Winters is being charged with fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. Every patient affected by his actions will be compensated. Every illegal experiment will be shut down. And the legitimate research? The treatments that actually work? We're donating them to medical institutions worldwide. Patent-free. No profit. Just a cure my father dreamed of. What about your reputation? Someone yelled. This will cost you billions. My reputation is built on truth. My billions are meaningless if they're built on lies. My father taught me that real diamonds don't need to shine loudly. They just are. This company will survive because we're choosing transparency over profit, integrity over image. And that's worth more than any amount of money. Marcus was arrested that evening trying to board a flight to Switzerland. Federal agents found him at the airport with fake passport and enough cash to start over somewhere without extradition treaties. He didn't go quietly. Screamed about injustice and favoritism and how Vincent's real crime was loving me more than him. Maybe he was right. Maybe Vincent did love me more. But love wasn't currency you could demand or steal or claim through bitterness. It was given freely or not at all. And Marcus had spent 40 years resenting something he could never force into existence. The trial took 6 months. Marcus fought every charge, hired expensive lawyers who argued he was the real victim of a family that cast him aside. But evidence didn't care about feelings. Documentation didn't lie. The jury took 3 hours to convict him on all counts. 20 years in federal prison. Restitution that would bankrupt him twice over. And most devastating of all, complete exclusion from any Rios inheritance or business involvement forever. I attended the sentencing with Aloan sleeping against my chest in one of those baby wraps that let you carry them hands-free. Mama sat beside me, Patricia on the other side. We watched Marcus being led away in handcuffs, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not grief, just closure. He was my brother, I said quietly to Mama as we left the courthouse. Half my DNA, and he hated me enough to destroy everything our father built. That's not about you, baby. That's about him. About wounds that festered instead of healing. About choices he made every single day to be bitter instead of better. She touched Aloan's sleeping head. You make sure she knows her worth isn't tied to anyone's approval. Not mine. Not yours. Not some sibling she hasn't met yet. Just her own heart telling her who she is. The company recovered faster than anyone predicted. Stock prices stabilized. Clientèle loyale. New partnerships formed. Turnout transparency and accountability were actually good for business. Who knew? The medical treatments we donated saved 300 lives in the first year alone. Patients who would have deteriorated into nothing instead got to keep their memories, their families, their futures. Vincent's dream realized without the corruption Marcus added. That felt like redemption for everyone involved. Valerio kept showing up for his Saturday visits. Held Aloan carefully. Asked good questions. Made stupid jokes that somehow landed. He'd never be my husband again. That ship had sailed, sunk, and been forgotten by sharks. But he was becoming a decent father. Slowly. Imperfectly. But consistently. That was enough. Celine got married to someone she met at her parents' church. Sent me an invitation I didn't respond to. Heard through mutual acquaintances that she was pregnant. Happy. Building a life that didn't include stealing mine. Good for her. I genuinely meant that. Some people needed to hit bottom before they could climb back up. Maybe she'd finally found solid ground. Aloan turned 1 year old on a Wednesday morning that felt exactly like the morning she was born. Like the world paused to acknowledge something miraculous. We celebrated at the penthouse with cake she mostly wore instead of ate. Mama took 1,000 photos. Patricia brought gifts that Aloan ignored in favor of the wrapping paper. Valerio showed up with a stuffed elephant that matched the wooden one he'd given before she was born. It was perfect, not magazine perfect, real perfect. The kind that only exists when you've survived enough pain to recognize joy when it shows up. That night, after everyone left and Aloan finally crashed from sugar and excitement, I sat in the nursery holding my daughter while she slept. 1 year ago, I was pregnant and betrayed, standing in a bedroom doorway, watching my life implode. Now I was here, CEO of a billion-dollar empire, mother to a miracle, living proof that betrayal doesn't write your ending unless you let it. Your grandfather would love you, I whispered to sleeping Aloan. He'd teach you about buildings and business and how real power comes from lifting others up. Your grandmother would spoil you rotten and make sure you never forgot where you came from. And your mama? I kissed her forehead gently. Your mama's going to make sure you grow up knowing that your worth has nothing to do with what people take from you, only what you choose to build after they're gone. She stirred slightly, smiled in her sleep, and my heart cracked open with love, so overwhelming I could barely breathe through it. This was the ending I'd built from Betrayal. Not perfect, not painless, but mine. Authentically, completely, powerfully mine. And that was better than any fairy tale could have promised. 2 years later, Forbes ranked me number 12 on their most powerful women list. The article's headline read, Marcy Rios, the CEO who turned betrayal into billions. I framed it next to the one that called pregnancy a distraction, kept both as reminders that other people's opinions were just noise. What mattered was the life you built when nobody was watching. The choices you made when it would have been easier to quit. The strength you found when everything else was stripped away. Aloan was walking now, talking in sentences, pointing at buildings with Rios logos and saying mamas with pride that made my chest hurt in the best way. She'd inherit this empire someday. But more importantly, she'd inherit the lesson that came with it. That you don't need permission to be powerful. Don't need validation to be worthy. Don't need anyone's approval to build something remarkable. You just need the courage to keep going when betrayal tries to break you, and the wisdom to turn pain into purpose. Everything else, that's just details. Have you ever rebuilt something beautiful from pieces of something broken? Share your story in the comments, because your journey might inspire someone who needs to hear they can survive this too. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the incredible true stories we share every week. Stories of resilience, transformation, and people who refuse to let their worst moments define their best lives. Hit that like button if Marcy's story moved you, and share this with someone who needs to remember that queens don't beg for crowns. They build kingdoms from the ground up and rule them with the wisdom that only comes from surviving what should have destroyed them. See you in the next story. And remember, your setback is just a setup for the greatest comeback of your life.